all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. As part of our Elements of Handicapping series for the Preakness, today we're going to concentrate on class, one of the four corners of handicapping: form, class, speed, and pace. So let's take a look at our contenders. Part 2 is class, and it's an assessment of whether or not each contender rightly belongs in the Preakness from a competitive standpoint. An analysis of pedigree and family history in conjunction with track results will help determine their qualification for usage. Blazing Sevens, and again, I want to note that the field, as of the recording here, is not final yet. This is just what we've gleaned are notable possible contenders. Blazing Sevens is signed on. He's in for sure, but let's take a look at him. You see he's by Good Magic, who's just got the Derby winner with Maze. So you got some pretty good bloodlines here. I think he's got 3 starters in this race. You see female, for those of you who don't know, FF is female family. The families were numbered in England by the amount of stakes wins they had, one being the best. And then when you see that letter, that means that there was a dam within that female family who was so influential that she gets her own branch of it. So A, B, C, D, and so on. So that's what that means. Genetic strength value is the measure of how strong the horse's bloodlines are. It's not completely accurate because they haven't updated the chef's de race in quite some time. But it's still a pretty good indicator when you compare it with the rest of the horses in the field. 48.90 is a fairly decent, kind of a middling number. So there's some pretty good lines. I think that the dam underneath maybe isn't necessarily the greatest. Do you see the DI and CD? That's dosage index and center of distribution. Again, not terribly accurate because they haven't updated the chefs de race in quite some time. It's just a numerical representation of the balance of a horse's pedigree, speed versus stamina. And over 4 would be considered a sprinter type pedigree. That used to be the rule of thumb. If you were over 4, you couldn't win the Kentucky Derby. So 357, again, while not being completely accurate, indicates that more than likely this horse will get the distance. I don't think that's going to be a problem. Center of distribution is how balanced the pedigree is, below 1 being perfectly balanced. If you're below 1, it means that you have a little more stamina. If you're above, you have a little more speed. So he's actually in good shape here. Again, not completely accurate numbers, but a fairly good reference point. So I think Chad Brown's had good success in the Preakness. I think pedigree and lineage-wise, I think this one stacks up. And you see the Bluegrass Stakes got a 3rd to show that he can compete at this level. So he gets a B- because that Fountain of Youth was a pretty uneventful race, to be kind. So, but I think this one belongs in this race. Coffee with Chris is by Ride on Curlin and Andy Mack by Outflanker underneath. Female family is 1A. Pretty good genetic strength value score, 54.77. All the numbers would indicate this horse would belong in this class. The performance speaks otherwise. The Tesio finishing 6th in that race wasn't terribly good. And really, it comes down to when we address speed, we'll talk about this one in a little more in-depthly. But class-wise, this one's kind of middle of the road. Really, I don't know how competitive this one has been against some of the better 3-year-olds. But so class you get to see. But I'm not thrilled about the prospects of this one. Chase the Chaos, pretty much same thing. If you look at the pedigree, is Medaglia d'Oro on top, Uncle Mo on the bottom, and this one shares the same female family with 2 other starters, and I'll allude to that in a little bit. Live the Moment by Uncle Mo being the dam. You see from a GSV, it's a little on the low side, but the dosage CD match up pretty well. Astern is a fairly new sire, so 6.7 might be a little low in terms of representing average winning distance. As they get older, it gets longer when the horses are in get into more 2-turn races. Obviously, when they're younger, they're going to be in a lot of sprints for maidens. So hence the number usually gets a little longer, particularly if a horse has a sire has 2-turn pedigree off the bat. So I don't know how competitive this one gets. It gets a C+ because he did win the El Camino Real. Granted, it was on synthetic, and but it's kind of hard to understand why this horse is in this race based upon the last two races, and but from a pedigree standpoint, probably belongs. Disarm has outstanding pedigree by Gun Runner with Tappet on the bottom. You couldn't ask for any better as far as two-turn races go, and he's proven that out. Again, this one is the same female family as Chase the Chaos, and they both descend from White Jasmine, who is a Ren de Course and has had some pretty nice production. So good bloodlines on the bottom for the dam, good class. I think this one is certainly competitive at the class level. Even if he hadn't demonstrated it last week in the Derby, I think this one would, just from a pedigree standpoint, absolutely is a fit. 2 turns is what this horse should be doing. So gets an A- because that's outstanding pedigree. Only the minus just because of the rushing of the training schedule when we couple in the performance element. But I think this one's going to be competitive in this race. First Mission is one of our new shooters. Is by Street Sense and Medaglia d'Oro on the bottom. Couldn't get any more 2-turn than that. You see the GSV is pretty good. It's one of the higher ones. And everything is a good fit from that standpoint. There's no reason this horse shouldn't be in this race. The Lexington, I think, is a pretty good indicator that this one fits class-wise. It wasn't the greatest of fields, and as we know, it's one of the JV Derby preps. So I want to see him do it at a little higher level, but and that's why he gets a B. But so far, all systems are go. This one definitely belongs, and we'll expect a pretty good effort out of him. Il Miracolo, conversely, I've said it numerous times, handicapping the Derby preps over the winter. I have no idea why this horse is running in these races. I just don't get it. He's proven time and again he cannot compete at the graded stakes level around 2 turns. Now, it's easy to understand why they keep trying to do it if you look at his pedigree. He's by Gun Runner, and he's got Tappet underneath. That's what he should be doing, is 2 turns. The problem is he can't do it fast enough. That's just the bottom line to it. So from a pedigree standpoint, I'll give him a C+ because he does have the pedigree to run in this race, and I don't necessarily think the distance is the problem. The problem is that he just doesn't have any speed. So, and I don't understand these. What more needs to be done? But I don't even know if this one's going to run for sure. Hopefully not, because I don't think this horse belongs. Let's just put it this way. Regardless, I won't have any money on him. Mays, here's our Kentucky Derby winner. Pretty self-explanatory that he belongs in this field, I think. He's by Good Magic, another one, with Puka, Big Brown Mare underneath. And everything is a fit, and I fully expect him to be the favorite in this race, and I don't think there's any doubt that he belongs in it. National Treasure is another one of our new shooters, was very prominent at 2, as we know, and had some high hopes for him coming out of 3, but the wheels kind of came off. He had some training interruptions, and losing Bob Baffert as well. He still has done okay this year. If we look from a class standpoint, you'll see Quality Road on top, Medaglia d'Oro on the bottom. He completely fits. 4C, good solid family, and you see his genetic strength value is one of the higher ones in this group. Interesting fact, his female family, you can trace it back to Mahuba, who is the dam of Man of War. And just as a side little story, I'll tell you, Mahuba was sired by Roxanne, who won the Triple Crown in England, and was a very gentle soul, very easy to work with, had kind of a sweet demeanor. Fair Play, Man of War's sire, was conversely very tempestuous, cranky, hard to deal with, didn't like people. So the breeders thought if we put a Roxanne mare with Fair Play, it'll take a little bit of the edge off and make his get easier to train. So they bred Fair Play to Mahuba, and out comes Man of War, who was tempestuous but was workable, and the rest is history. So pretty good breeding in that regard. Also, they used to call Mahuba Mrs. Fair Play because that's all she was ever bred to. So if you look back at her get, they're all by Fair Play. So just a little fun fact. But anyway, he's got some nice bloodlines, and from a class standpoint, I think he certainly fits. He'd probably get an A if he had been done a little better this year on the Derby Trail. But I think this one is a definite fit. Having Bob Baffert training again certainly should be a plus. And I don't think this one's here just to eat crab cakes. I mean, I think this one's here to compete in this race. Perform is, you couldn't ask for better connections. Phipps, Stable, Shug McGahee. Feargal Lynch gave Perform one of the best rides I've ever seen in the Federico Tesio to get him up to win. Really fantastic ride. And you'd have to give him probably 90% of the credit for him winning that race. As far as the class goes, he's by Good Magic, again, another one, and Taylor Vacati underneath. Probably a little bit more attuned. Taylor Vacati, not necessarily a distance influence. He's from female family 23B, but you do see that he descends from 2 generations back from Leslie's Lady, who is a Reine de Course. That's queen of the race. It's the same as a chef de race, but it's on the female side. And you can see why. This one by herself produced Beholder, Into Mischief, and Mendelssohn, all grade 1 stakes horses. And Into Mischief obviously needs no introduction. So pretty good mare. So you got some nice bloodlines underneath. Great connections from that standpoint. You know, this horse is got sterling bloodlines, and it qualifies from a class perspective, and that's why he gets an A minus. It would be the minus is only that I don't know who he beat in the Federico Tesio, and it remains to be seen if he's completely grade 1 caliber. But going into the race from a class perspective, I think he belongs. Red Route 1 is our last one, and you can't do better than his pedigree either. Gun runner on top, tap it on the bottom. I guess the owners of Red House are Jimi Hendrix fans. But anyway, just an aside. Female family AD, you see a decent GSV, kind of middling. And he's a full sister to Untappable, who was a hell of a good filly in her day. You also see he descends from Carol's Christmas, who was a Reine de Course, who was the mother of Olympio. So there's some good, really nice bloodlines there, some real immediate influences that make for a really good pedigree. So for class-wise, this one certainly belongs. From that perspective, he's got excellent connections, Winchell Thoroughbreds and Steve Asmussen. And, he's been in... we all know the deal with Red Route 1, and he seems to be getting a little more engaged in the race earlier. So just from a form standpoint, I think he's making his way. But class-wise, yes, he belongs. He's demonstrated he can compete at this level, so he belongs in this field. I think we got a pretty good field. A couple that look like they're a little tenuous as whether or not they belong. But for the most part, I think we've got some good selections and should make for a pretty good race. We'll have parts 3 and 4, speed and pace, later on this week. This is being recorded on Sunday. The post positions are coming Monday, so we'll have a definite field at that point. And from there, we'll focus on the definite runners. And we will put it all together and wrap it up and do a final analysis, take a look at all the elements together. And we'll also have some strategy as well. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to continue with our Belmont card series as well. Every day they have racing, we'll have a sequence. So you'll have that to pine over as well. And I hope our analysis helps you in formulating your own strategy. And you always got to rely on your own opinion, but we just try to provide some extra insight that perhaps helps you along the way. If you do like what you see here, of course, please like and subscribe. And we do thank you for coming by. I'll be talking to you a lot this week, so be on the lookout for that. And until then, be well.